I want to say something at the very beginning of this video that I need you to receive clearly, not as encouragement or comfort, but as a clinical statement. What you're feeling in your marriage is not self-pity, and it's not ingratitude, and it's not a spiritual problem. And it's not evidence that you expect too much or you haven't prayed enough or that you need to try harder to appreciate what you have. The loneliness you feel sleeping next to someone and feeling utterly alone, or sitting across the dinner table from the man you married and feeling a distance that no conversation seems to bridge, or being seen by everyone except the one whose seeing matters the most. That loneliness is pain. Not metaphorically, not poetically. I'm not being a poet here. Physiologically, neurologically, measurably pain. And in a marriage shaped by emotional withdrawal, dismissal, and the chronic experience of rejection by the one person you are most open to, that pain has a more specific name. It's relational trauma. Today, I want to show you why, because I have watched women minimize this experience for years. Call it a rough season, call it their own sensitivity, call it anything except what it actually is. And the minimizing delays the help. And the help is real, and it's available. And it's what I want to point you toward before this video even ends. Before we go into the research and the clinical picture, if you are carrying this right now and you want to be in a community with other women who understand it without you having to justify it, the Detox Your Marriage community link is down below in the description. Come and find us. Now, let's look at what the science actually says. In 2003, a neuroscientist named Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA published a landmark study that changed how the scientific community understood social disconnection. Her team placed participants in a functional MRI scanner and had them play a simple virtual ball tossing game, an experience so mild it barely registers as social interaction. And then midway through, the other players stopped including them. A trivial laboratory version of being left out. What the brain scans showed stopped the research community in their tracks. The brain regions that activated during social exclusion were the same regions associated with physical pain, specifically the anterior cingulate cortex, which processes emotional distress of pain, and the anterior insula. So this is not a metaphor. The experience of social rejection, exclusion, or loss relies on some of the same neurobiological substrates that underlie experiences of physical pain. Sit with that for a moment. And the research has only deepened since then. A 2025 study published showed brain-wide representations confirmed that the brain regions that activate when a person is excluded, rejected, or grieving a loss relationship are the same regions that activate during physical injury, with the overlap so substantial that a standard over-the-counter painkiller measurably reduces both kinds of pain. Let me say that again. A painkiller designed for physical injury measurably reduces the pain of social rejection because the brain uses the same system to register both. When you feel the loneliness of being unseen in your marriage, that is not sensitivity. That is your brain processing a genuine wound through a genuine pain system. You're not imagining it, and you're not exaggerating it. You are experiencing it. Now, I want to make a distinction here that I think is critical, because not all loneliness is the same, and the loneliness inside a marriage is in some ways the most physiologically and psychologically damaging form of it. When a person is simply alone without a partner, without close company, the nervous system registers a deficit, yes, an absence, something that's missing. And that's painful, it's real, but it's legible, if you will. The nervous system can name it. It can name what it's responding to. On the other hand, what happens inside a marriage defined by emotional withdrawal, dismissal, and chronic rejection is different. Here's why. The nervous system's primary attachment figure, right? The person it's been wired to turn toward for safety, comfort, and the regulation of distress, is physically present, right? He's there, but he's emotionally unavailable. And that combination, the physical presence and the emotional absence, creates a specific form of confusion in the attachment system that ordinary loneliness does not. Right? Your body reaches for connection. The person is there. The connection is refused or absent or managed away. And that cycle of reaching, being refused, reaching again, is precisely what produces the sustained low-grade pain that women in these marriages describe. It's not a single acute wound, but as a chronic, draining, daily experience of being in the wrong place for the person you most need. A 2025 study drawing from data across 256,000 people across 139 countries found that individuals who reported feeling lonely had significantly higher odds of experiencing physical pain, which confirms what the neuroimaging study already suggested. The body and the social self are not separate systems. What one experiences, the other registers. Here's where I want to be the most precise, because this is the step that most conversations about loneliness in marriage do not take. And it's the step that changes everything about how the experience should be understood and addressed. Chronic loneliness inside a marriage is not simply an unfortunate relational state. When it is sustained over months and years, when the emotional withdrawal is consistent, when bids for connection are consistently refused or dismissed, when a woman reaches for her primary attachment figure again and again and is met with absence or coldness or contempt, it crosses a threshold. It becomes abandonment. And abandonment within an attachment relationship is traumatic. Now, I want to use that word carefully because I'm aware that it carries weight, but I use it clinically, not dramatically. Relational trauma is the term used in the clinical literature to describe harm that occurs not in a single event, but through the repeated, cumulative experience of threat within a close attachment relationship. The threat does not need to be physical. I want to be clear. The research is clear that the chronic loneliness of sustained relational disconnection registers in the brain as a form of sustained low-grade pain, which is precisely the neurological signature of ongoing trauma. What this means practically is that the woman who comes to work with us after 12 years of emotional withdrawal in her marriage, who's been reaching for connection and finding absence, who's been making bids for intimacy and finding coldness, who's tried to speak and found her reality dismissed, is not simply in a sad marriage. She is carrying the accumulated weight of years of relational harm. Her nervous system has been shaped by it. Her self-trust has been eroded by it. And her capacity for safe attachment has been altered by it. She does not need comfort. She needs recovery. And recovery from relational trauma is a specific kind of work. I think of a woman I worked with, I'm going to call her Claire here. She came to me not describing herself as traumatized. She wouldn't have used that word. She came describing herself as lonely. And she used that word specifically, almost apologetically, as though it was not sufficient reason to be in a therapist's office. Her husband was not a cruel man, she said. He was simply not there, not emotionally available, not interested in any active or engaged way in her, her interior life. The husband provided, he functioned, he cut the grass. He showed up in all the external ways, But the version of her that needed to be known, that needed to be met, had been waiting to be met for so long that she had begun quietly to grieve. Again, she did not use the term. She hadn't named it grief. She called it dissatisfaction. And she wondered if she was just expecting too much. Is this just normal when you've been married for this long? She had prayed about it and wondered if maybe it's a faith problem. What I saw pretty quickly, frankly, was a woman in the early stages of relational trauma. Not from a dramatic event, but from the daily accumulated weight of being unmet by the person that she was most open to. From the chronic activation of her attachment system in a direction that consistently returned nothing. And so the work that we did together was not about her marriage at first. It was about her nervous system, her self-trust, her understanding of what had actually been happening to her over the years. And when she finally received, and I watched her receive it, the clinical legitimacy of her pain, like I'm talking about in this video, something shifted in her soul. She straightened. She looked up. It's as if she said, okay, so what you're telling me is this is real. I'm not imagining it. Yeah, it's real. And it always was. I want to say this simply because I think it is the most important thing that I'm going to say in this video. If you've been minimizing your loneliness, calling it a rough season, calling it your own sensitivity, telling yourself that other women have it harder, and you're waiting for something dramatic enough to justify the pain that you feel, I want to give you the clinical and the personal permission to stop that. The science says your pain is real. The attachment research says your nervous system is responding exactly as it was designed to. And the clinical literature says that what you have been carrying, if it's been sustained long enough and consistent enough and met with enough dismissal, qualifies as relational trauma. And the thing that you need to know is relational trauma does not resolve on its own. It does not improve with more patience on your part or more time. It requires specific, targeted, informed recovery work. Work that understands the nervous system, that rebuilds self-trust and addresses the specific interior damage that comes from being chronically unmet by the person that you were most open to. That work is available, and I think you deserve it. I've spent 30 years sitting with people, mainly women, frankly, in exactly this place. Women who came in lonely and left understanding what they were carrying was real, it has a name, and it has a pathway through it to come out the other side. The Trauma Recovery Blueprint is the resource that I've built for this specific journey. Because not all women have survived something that ended, it was dramatic, something that will end up on the front of the newspaper. Some women who are healing from something that's ongoing, the cumulative relational harm of a marriage that's been shaped by emotional withdrawal, dismissal, rejection, and just the chronic experience of being unseen. The book addresses the nervous system, the self-trust, the attachment architecture, the daily practical work of rebuilding what sustained loneliness and relational harm have eroded. That book, The Trauma Recovery Blueprint, is available on Amazon right now. The link is down below in the description. And if you want to do this work in community, alongside other women who know what it feels like, then so you don't have to explain it, the Detox Your Marriage community link is also down below. Your loneliness is not self-pity. The pain is not exaggerated. And your need for recovery is there, and it's real. It's exactly right. And there is a pathway through it. Hey, I'm Dr. Don, and I want to announce something for the women who knows exactly what's happening in her marriage, who's done the research, who's named it, but still doesn't know how to get herself back without blowing up her entire life. Because here's what nobody talks about. Leaving is not the only option, and staying doesn't have to mean shrinking. What you actually need is a way to reclaim your identity, your voice, your sense of self while you're still in it. My new book, The RSVP Protocol, Reclaim Your Life, Your Voice, and Yourself Without Leaving Your Marriage, gives you exactly that. It's a 4-phase framework built on 30 years of clinical work that takes you from invisible and exhausted to grounded, sovereign, and whole. It's out now on Amazon right now. Grab it from the link below. And when things shift for you, and they will, come back and leave a review and tell me about it. All right? Now,